It's great to be back here at TSU. Thank you to ASPA for hosting this event. Just some context. You know, you guys are all, I'm 41. I know they say I don't look 41, but I'm 41. You guys are all a little bit younger than me. It's really important that we have the next generation of leadership in public administration. From my perspective, there is a void there. We have a lot of people that, whether elected or city managers that are, 10, 15, 20 years older than me. We need that next generation of people. So as I give this presentation, I'm optimistic that you guys will pay attention and hopefully learn something, and it will inspire you into a life of public service, because we desperately need that. So, tonight we're going to be talking about the City of Houston, challenges and opportunities. And you always have to put in there, because with all challenges, there are opportunities if they are properly dealt with. Just a quick overview of the Comptroller's Office and how we're structured as city government in the City of Houston. It's important to note that, and I don't know if you can see that little laser pointer, City Comptroller is independently elected. One of 5 cities in the United States, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, all are elected city controllers along with Houston. So a very important point in the sense of we have the authority, I have the authority to make decisions independent of the mayor, independent of city council. So that's an important distinction right off the bat, because there is a solid system of checks and balances. Just a little bit about the City of Houston budget. We're talking about big numbers here. $5.07 billion, that's billion with a B, is our annual budget. Of that, $239 billion is the operational budget. That's really the budget that people focus on. Police, fire, solid waste, all the different service related. How do we pay for that? We pay for that with property and sales tax and other fines, franchise fees, and whatnot. This is a big corporation, and that's another point. We talked, James talked a little bit about the private sector experience. It really helped me working in an investment bank, trading and doing large, complex transactions. That prepared me for my job in the public sector and life in public service. We'll talk a little bit about general fund expenditures, because I think it's important to note where is this tax money that you guys, and you are all investors in the City of Houston. Even if you don't own property here, you're paying sales tax on everything that you buy in the City of Houston, so you are an investor. Where is that money basically going to? And looking at this pie chart, public safety is what really stands out here. Almost 60% of our budget is public safety. It's a huge challenge for governments, especially a government like the City of Houston, 640 square miles, to be able to provide police, fire, and emergency medical services. So that's, I think, one of the big challenges. The primary charge for government is that, first and foremost, we've got to keep our citizens safe. We're very lucky to live in a country, knock on wood, that we are all relatively safe as compared to other places throughout the world. We also have enterprise funds, so those are separate and apart from that operational budget, the general fund budget. Houston Airport System, with a budget of approximately $500 million. Convention and entertainment facilities. How many of y'all are going to the Super Bowl next year? Or want to go? I'd like to go. Okay, want to go. That's what I should ask. Houston is going to be hosting, obviously, and that's a big deal. And the Convention and Entertainment Facility is doing a lot of work to prepare for the upwards of 500,000 people that are going to descend on Houston to come watch some football, to watch the Texans beat whomever. I don't know who it's going to be, but okay, maybe that's too optimistic. The combined utility system, huge system. This is our water and sewer system. Basically $1.1 billion. And again, you think back to Houston and it being a unique city, 640 square miles. We are a lot larger than many other cities cities that are of equal population, we have to run these sewer lines and water lines a lot farther. So that's a huge cost there with our combined utility system. So a lot of, as we talk about challenges, this is one of them, providing infrastructure. Huge challenge for the city of Houston because of its geographical characteristics. Quick market update. We really have to look at the real estate market because that's a huge component of our economy here. And how has the real estate market fared with the oil recession? And I'm here to say, thankfully, it's fared quite well. And you can see this chart over the last 5 years of the single-family home sales. And overall, the trend is still up. We have a lot of volatility here, right? But you got to just kind of look at the overall number of home sales continues to go up. The median home price continues to go up. Now, houses are staying on the market longer. There are a lot fewer multiple offer. For those of y'all that were buying a house or new people that were buying a house in 2013, 2014, it was hard to get a house. You might have put a bid in on a house and had 2 other people trying to outbid you. That is not the case anymore. It's moving more towards a buyer's market. So even despite oil dropping, we're still seeing a pretty good resilient nature from the housing market. That's an important characteristic. The economy in Houston is a lot more resilient than it was, say, in the 1980s. Here's just a chart of crude prices. You can just see how we were way up. The prices have dropped. It's been a lower for longer scenario. People are starting to liken this to the 1980s. I was very young then, 7 years old, or I guess 8 years old when this first started back in the 80s. But I do remember it. I remember the impact it had on my family. And my parents were kind of freaked out about making ends meet and things like that. Not this difficult this time, although much of the same in that the prices have continued to stay in a low range, and rig count, which is really something that drives our economy here, has plummeted. We've seen all the way down to 404 rigs from 1,800 back in 2014. One of the things, and we got to talk about challenges, we got to talk about pensions. Pensions. For those of y'all that have been reading the news, Dallas has been in the news a lot for their pensions. They've been getting national attention. New York Times just did a piece. Dallas, unfortunately, is involved in a pension situation that is a result of years and years and years and years of lack of action. And I'm here to report, and it's good news, that the City of Houston has had similar issues, but the good news is we have taken steps to remedy this, and we will be going to the state legislature, I'll talk more about that later, to fix the pension problem. And we still have time to do that. The good news is we need to act now, and we're going to do that. So in looking with the pensions, and this is a national problem, every city and state throughout the country has problems with unfunded pension liabilities. This is basically the ratio of funding, so the amount of money that we have in our pension funds versus the amount of money that we have to pay out for our retirees over time. It continues to decline. Houston actually is a little bit better than the national average. If you look at Dallas, they're around 42% funded, so they have 42% of the money they need over the next 30 years to pay their retirees. Houston is about in the 70s, so much better, but still challenging because we don't have a fully funded pension plan. So in 2001, people say challenges. Well, you got to be a student of history. How did we get into this problem? How did these challenges present themselves? In 2001, the Houston municipal employees, that's municipal employees, HPOPs is the police, and HFRRF is the fire. All 3 of them made changes to their pension benefits. We had an advisor at the time that told us these weren't going to have a really big impact on our bottom line. They were wrong. It had a pretty substantial increase in some plans. HMEPs, the employees, municipal employees plan, the initial percentage of payroll, and this is the amount of percentage that we pay for, what if your salary, if you pay someone $100, 15% or $15 of that is going to pay for pension benefits. Well, that number increased from 15% in some instances to 53%. So half of every dollar that the city was spending on payroll was going to fund future pension benefits. So that's a big challenge. That's a problem. And unfortunately, the way that these are structured, all these changes were made in the state legislature in Austin. And once you get those changed, it's very difficult to change them again. Like I said, again, we are working in this next legislative session in 2017 to make wholesale changes that'll fix this problem. But this thing's been going for 15 years. So moving on, what happened? We had initially a slightly overfunded pension system, so we actually had more money than we needed. And part of the reason they made the changes because they said, well, we got more money than we need, so let's change this and give some money back to the employees. Well intended, very well intended, and I support all the hardworking employees, police, muni, and fire, but the plan design was flawed. We had bad information, and as a result, that unfunded liability from 2000, really this took place in 2001. By 2003, we had $2.2 billion unfunded liability, and that continued to grow. Bill White, as mayor, made some changes when he first came into office. It slowed that rate, almost stopped it a little bit. 2008, they made benefit changes again, and then boom. It just exploded. So it's really you talk about challenges, this is it for the city of Houston. And we're going to be we have been proactive. We've gotten the pension plans to agree to reform. We're going to be pushing this very aggressively in the state legislature to get it passed. We do not want to be in the same situation that Dallas is in. We're going to be proactive. Conversely, when I was running, we had a lot of discussions about challenges, and people said, well, we've got too much debt. And I said, well, look, I'm a former investment banker and a trader. What type of debt are you talking about? Because there's two types of debt. There's bond debt. People issue bonds to pay for capital projects. It's a financial instrument. It has a definitive amortization, maturity period, coupon payment, and such. The only way to get out of bond debt is through bankruptcy. I said, if you look at our bond debt, which is the chart up here, this is the amount of annual payments that we have to make to service that debt that we've issued. And as you can see, every year it goes down, 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 down. So by the time we're in 2039, we're paying less than $20 million a year in debt service. We will add projects over time to this, but overall, this is the type of chart for those of y'all that have the financial classes. This is what a CFO of a Fortune 500 company, he dreams about at night. He says, I wish I had a debt service schedule that looked like this. Now, conversely, another form of debt, not bond debt, it's an unfunded liability, which is our pension unfunded liability. These are the annual payments for our pension unfunded liability. So anybody that, just in looking at the graph, the top one is good, bottom is bad. And the bottom, the pension unfunded liabilities are rising around 11 to 13% a year. Our sales and property tax only rises in a good year maybe 3 to 5%. So our costs are outstripping our revenues, and that's a problem. So this is a challenge, big challenge. We also, there were changes, accounting changes that governmental accounting standards boards implemented that affected the unfunded liability from a paper standpoint, from an audit standpoint, and literally overnight the unfunded liability on our 2014 annual audit was at $1.2 billion. It jumped to $5.57 billion. This is right when I took office. How horrible, right? Terrible, right? Challenge. Oh my God. No, opportunity. This is how you have to think about things. This is a true representation of what the actual pension debt is. Before we were saying it was $1.2 billion. Couldn't get people to act. They said, your audit says it's only $1.2 billion. You have a $5 billion budget. We got years before we have to deal with this. No. This is the true number. And in fact, others would argue it's even higher. And under the mayor's plan, he used a more aggressive discount rate. And he's actually using a number that's $7.7 billion. So, that challenge became an opportunity because we used this information to call people to action. And we got people that never wanted to ever deal with pension issues to start talking about it. And we did it in a manner that was mutually agreed upon. So what did we do? How did we take this challenge and we create an opportunity? We were able to mutually agree, and I say mutually agree, we got police, fire, and municipal employees to come to the table and say, this is what we're willing to give up. We didn't go to them. And that's an important distinction, because in other cities where they had taken, and I say one-sided referendums or legislative grabs or legal maneuvering through referendum and such, they were able to short-term make changes, but then the employee groups, the pension funds, they sued. And guess what? They won almost every single time. So the challenge here is, how do we get this to stand the legal test over time? How do we get something that is fair? Because we have a moral obligation to the folks that have worked for years and years and years, blood, sweat, and tears. I did a firefighter training. I lasted about half a day. This is a tough job. How do we make sure that we are not only preserving their benefits, but being able to afford to pay for them? So we were able to get them to come to the table, mutually agreed upon solution to solve this long-term challenge of the pension funds. As I said, the mayor, and to his credit, Mayor Sylvester Turner, used a more reasonable discount rate, lowered it from 8.5% down to 7%. So the amount of money that we expect to return every year on our pension funds drops from 8.5% down to 7%. Low interest rate environment right now, it's very hard to make 7%. Rates are coming back up, but this is more realistic. That increased that unfunded liability from $5.6 billion to $7.7. Then we were able to mutually agree, get these groups to mutually agree to benefit cuts. We were able to get cost of living decreases, accrual rate decreases, and changes to the drop plan, save $2.5 billion. When I'm going to say when this plan gets approved at the state legislature, we will be able to erase $2.5 billion the second that gavel hits the ground and they approve that legislation. Again, a distinction between pension unfunded liabilities and bond debt. There's no way to get rid of bond debt except for bankruptcy. This is, and I never say that word, I'm using that theoretically, so just so you know. But the $2.5 billion, that's an instant savings. We changed to a 30-year closed-loop amortization. What does that mean? We had a interest-only mortgage. We actually never paid any principal down. It's like having your credit cards and you're not even paying the minimum payment. Now what we're doing is we're paying not only the minimum payment, we're paying principal and interest, so it actually gets paid down over 30 years. We had to also agree, we had underfunded the police and municipal plans. We weren't paying the full amount every year to these programs. It's a disservice to all the employees because their unfunded liabilities kept growing. So we made provisions in the plan that we have to pay the amounts. And with those $2.5 billion in savings, we can actually afford to make those payments. We issued somewhat of a challenge from my perspective, $1 billion of pension obligation bonds. Now that's swapping an unfunded liability, again, something that you can negotiate, for an actual fixed bond debt. I'm not a big fan of that, but you know what? In the form of compromise, everyone's got to give a little. I talked this over at length with the mayor. I said if we do the pension obligation bond $1 billion, that'll reduce that unfunded liability by $1 billion. We can issue it at historically low interest rates, and we will take that money immediately and put it into the pension funds so that it will shore them up and make them more financially stable. Under those terms, I agreed, and we moved forward. And finally, one of the most important components of this is the corridor, the thermostat risk corridor. So if for some reason, and again, those that ignore history are doomed to repeat it, in 2001 they put a plan forward that they didn't have any provision that if they were wrong about their assumptions, that it would self-correct itself. So essentially what's going on with this risk corridor, the thermostat, if for some reason this plan doesn't doesn't act the way we thought it would, we've got a provision in here that will automatically call the employees and the pension funds and the city together to make changes, and it's already predetermined of how this will happen, so that we will every year correct this. So we won't let this go another 15 years and get the train so far off the tracks that we can't immediately fix it. So it will essentially keep us on track so that we make sure that we pay off this money over the next 30 years. So again, this is a great example of a challenge that became an opportunity because of this financial crisis, because we were able to get good, accurate information, my campaign and many others, the mayor's campaign during 2015, this was a key subject, the financial problems with the city and the pension debt, and this is the opportunity that's created. So we plan to take this to the state legislature, hopefully get it passed. And that concludes my presentation. So I don't know, I think we're going to do questions afterwards. Thank you all very much.
Yes, if you have any questions, please ask at the very end of the session, because we would like Mr. Snipes to make his presentation, and after that you can ask all the speakers the questions. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I see some folks like they're chilling tonight, but I wanted to, while they're getting